Good evening. Welcome. This is a regular board meeting of the Board of Trustees for Canutillo ISD. Today is September 26th, 2023, and the time is 6:05.
Item 1A, call to order. Item 1B, Pledge of Allegiance.
I would like to call up Jacob Maria. He's from Jose Damian Elementary School, and he's going to lead us up for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas flag. This way, sweetheart. There you go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Very good.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jacob, so much. Roll call.
Item 1D, roll call. Ms. Barnes.
Present.
Ms. Borrego, call.
Ms. Borrego is, she works in another school district and was having a function this evening, but she was going to try to make it later on, so we expect her to come in any moment.
Ms. Mendoza.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Mr. Rodriguez is flying in. He's already landed at the El Paso airport, so he's on his way.
Mr. Cimental.
Here.
Mrs. Stroud.
Present.
Ms. Zuniga.
Here.
Okay. Item 1E, CISD mission and vision statements.
Would Mr. Simental and Ms. Zuniga please? Oh, you don't.
Which one do you want? Mission. We provide equitable opportunities to ensure our future-ready students are empowered to explore, learn, grow, and excel.
Vision. Lead today, impact tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us what we're here for. Next.
Item number 2, board honors. 2A, recognition of Jose Damian Elementary School for earning the Purple Star designation for service to military-connected families from the Texas Education Agency. Presenter, Mr. Gustavo Rodriguez.
Board President Mendoza, Dr. Galaviz, members of the board, would you please join me in front of the dais as you begin the presentation. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to recognize the work being done on behalf of students right here in Canutillo ISD, the best small district in Texas and El Paso's only AAA rated school district. Canutillo ISD has always had a special relationship with the military families that choose our schools to provide a world-class services to their children. From our strong JROTC roots to our partnerships with Fort Bliss soldiers in Canutillo, we honor the men and women of military service for the heroes that they are. That special relationship between schools and military families is honored each year by the Texas Education Agency with their award of the Purple Star designation. The TEA Purple Star recognizes schools that go above and beyond in their efforts to serve military-connected families. Receiving this honor is not easy. In order to be considered, a school must, 1, designate a campus-based military liaison that supports military students and their families, and offers professional development opportunities for staff members related to military-connected students. 2, create a webpage with information and resources for military-connected students and their families. 3, establish a campus transition program to introduce students and families to their new school. And 4, offer opportunities for local military organizations and active duty personnel to be involved in the campus. Last year, 2 schools were designated Purple Star schools, Reyes and Childress Elementary School. This year, we recognize a third, Jose Damian Elementary School. Damian earned this honor by continuing to demonstrate an unwavering support of their military-connected students and their families, and welcoming Fort Bliss troops to come in and help with events like Veterans Day celebrations, tutoring, career days, and even food distribution. The presence of active duty personnel at Damian and all other CISD schools reinforces our commitment to support the military families that are an integral part of the Cantillo experience. Please help me welcome Principal Dr. Aranda and representatives from the Jose Damian community for earning the Texas Education Agency Purple Star.
There you go. That's a good one.
All right, don't go too far. Get the photo.
Thank you.
Go in the middle.
Yes, sir. Congratulations, JV team, and thank you for your service.
Wait. Tomorrow, Staff Sergeant Pugh is going to be retiring. We'll give you 20 years for this country. You gave 20 years in this country. You gave 20 years like all these people that sit here, they can sign up for open forum. You got your family back here that came in from Carolina.
Proud of you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Jermaine Pugh. First, I was born in North Carolina, and I joined the Army 2003 October, straight out of high school. I didn't know the direction I want to go, so I thought military was the right way, since my father, he was in the military. So I just want to say, I joined the Army for 9/11 is what changed my mind of joining. Because what I do is for the people in America. That's why I serve, because I love my country.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Well, congratulations, everyone. Happy retirement. And board members, this concludes for us.
That was incredible. Thank you, Dr. G. Next item.
Next item, number 3, Lone Star Governance, presented by Dr. Pedro Galaviz and Dr. Deborah Kearney.
Dr. Perry. Board, last week, we experienced Lone Star Governance. I just wanted to show you, especially for the new members, what Lone Star Governance is. There's that timeline, the calendar, where we are. If there are any questions, I know it's in the board. And also, I just also submitted the TEA, the corrective action plan that we're on. And I wanted the community to know that there's only 2 members that were on that were here in 2020. That was Trustee Rodriguez and Trustee Trump. The other 5, I have no idea. 2020 was probably weren't born in 2020. But I just wanted to give you the reason why, because again, 6 members of the board attended, 1 did not, and so until, according to TEA, this corrective action plan, CISD, ISD agrees to the CISD, the Board of Trustees and Superintendent must schedule participate in a refresher training on Lone Star Governance model to include areas of parliamentary procedures by no later than June 30th, 2020. So I'm in touch with TPA to see, since we did have 6 members, and again, things happen in life. Some board members did not attend. But I just want to give you the gist. And in October, we'll be talking more about Lone Star Governance, where we are, and where we're going. So we can focus on student outcomes.
So yes, as Dr. Galaviz stated, congratulations on completing your LSG training. It's time to get to work on that, on the, monitoring student outcomes. So beginning in October, we're going to begin looking at our goal 1 and 2, which is math and reading. So our curriculum and instruction department will be providing you with presentations concerning how our students are doing when it comes to meeting their student achievement goals. So we're going to be focusing on math, reading, and CCMR. So we'll be providing you those periodic updates. The calendar you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner. We are in the process of updating this calendar a little bit, just because we have some new programs that we're using, and so we want to reflect that on the calendar, and we want to also put the latest accountability data. Of course, that data is still being looked at by TEA, and so we're going to be having our final data very soon, so we'll be sharing that not only in this calendar, but with you in a presentation. So this Thursday, in your Thursday packet, Ms. Harrison is going to be sharing with you our latest STAR data that we received. We still, of course, don't have accountability ratings. Those won't be coming for about another month. And then later in 2024, probably about January maybe, if not a little later, we'll be receiving our taper from the state. And then about 90 days after that, Ms. Harrison will give, within 90 days, it has to be done. Ms. Harrison will be giving a public presentation on our taper data accountability report. So just wanted to let you know we will be beginning these updates in October. Of course, you'll be receiving the info in the backup, so you'll be able to start getting your questions ready regarding the data. But we really look forward to sharing with you how our students are doing. That's always a really strong conversation. It lets you know what our students are working on and how we're achieving our goals as a district. So just want to answer any questions you might have about the calendar and how it works, if you have anything. But we just really look forward to this process.
Thank you, Dr. Kearney.
Thank you.
Ms. Trapp.
I just have a question for you. Thank you very much. This information they're gonna provide us is only for Canutillo High School and Norwest Early College, or is this include elementary school and middle school as well?
It's for all schools, the entire district.
And how are we right now in math and reading in elementary?
Math and reading in elementary, we did better than we thought with it being a new test. Of course, the school is still setting the scoring and all of that, so we're still waiting for some final results. But we're pleased with how our students did as we compare with the region and the state. So, of course, there's always still work to do, especially with making sure more of our students are achieving at the master's level. But our students did well overall. We did not know what to expect with this new design, how would students perform. We were just waiting for that data, but we're very pleased with how our students did. But it's still going to remain to be seen how we do with accountability overall. It just depends on what the final outcome is with the accountability manual and what is decided there by the state.
So I feel that we're moving the needle, right?
Yes, still a lot of work to do, but we're working hard.
So hopefully, okay. Middle school as well? Doing good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I would like to say, the board attended the Lone Star governance training, and it was 2 days, and they tell you from 8 to 6, and you think, oh my God, and then people get out at 4. No, we got out at 6. But during that time, I think this board had a lot of aha moments. We learned a lot of things that we could be doing better, and we learned on some things that we're doing good now. And I just wanted to commend Dr. Galaviz for corralling us in and making it easier for us to attend this training. I thought it was extremely worthwhile.
So one of the things that was discussed at LSG was to make sure that at every board meeting we are discussing student outcomes. Looking at the calendar, I'm seeing that we're lumping some of those together, and so certain months are skipped. Is there a way that we can adjust that, where we are discussing student outcomes at every meeting, and maybe we can get a little bit more in depth with that particular goal because it's by itself instead of being lumped with another?
We could definitely explore that, sure, especially since we're revising it. We could look at doing it across the calendar if that's what Galaviz and everyone wants to do.
I think maybe we should discuss that so that we are discussing student outcomes. That I know maybe not every meeting. I know we don't have one, I believe in July, correct? So, and then sometimes the beginning or end of the year might be a little bit crazy. So it's not every single month, but I think we should almost every month.
And I think it's really most months. It's just that normally in January that's taper. So that's why that's not actually LSG. We give that time to taper because that takes a while. And then in September, they normally could either present or provide in a board packet the results. So we could do that either way. It just depends on time. Like for this particular meeting, we could have done it. We just weren't sure with all that we needed to meet on. So it could be done either way.
And
perfect.
And I think Ms. Barnes, sorry, if I may.
I would just like the record to reflect that Mr. Rodriguez arrived at 6:24. Go ahead.
And maybe too, because it's every 9 weeks. It's the way it's structured is
That's
we
true.
have our data
Okay.
at the 9 weeks, Ms. Barnes, and we can present more solid.
Yeah, Miss Ariano is correct, because we were, I think, trying to do it differently before and then didn't have the data sets because we needed to give teachers the opportunity to assess and then analyze the data. So that's probably why this calendar is done.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just in regards to sorry, I apologize. There was actually lightning at the airport and they wouldn't let anybody in or out. And so I was still on the plane when that happened, but congratulations to, I know there was a retirement I was watching online, and to the students that were recognized in the campus as well. So in regards to, this is, so we have the calendar, and we're gonna have to look at setting up a workshop, right? So that way we could go in more detail, making sure that we follow.
That would be
These are the ones that have
These goals are set to 2026.
correct, but this is just so that way we're all on board. I think, the workshop would help unless there's questions, but I think it's pretty much simple in regards to some of the goals. They're research-based. You're looking at, reading on 3rd grade level, you're looking at math, certain areas, and then what we might have to look at is the CCMR, is that correct?
CCMR is on here in goal 3.
That's
But we're doing, what I was stating earlier is we're doing a little bit of updating based on additional programs that we purchased or whatever. But when it comes to CCMR, one difference that you're gonna see in the update is that we're gonna include TSI progress as well to make sure that we include that. So we'll be providing an updated calendar as well.
I wouldn't suggest the workshop, I would suggest that it happens here during the regular board meeting. As you recall from LSG, 50% of what we should be about student outcomes. That way, it's not something special, because you have an audience here that start governance and student outcomes. It's just my suggestion, but again, if the board wants to.
And that's fine. What I'm making sure is that the new board members, or right now is the time, especially the new board members, if they have any questions. If not, so we can move on, because the goal would be then to start developing Dr. Galavise's evaluation instrument around this. And so right now is the time, especially if you're not okay with the goals. I think what we're gonna have to look at, and we can have that at the next meeting, is possibly adding some constraints, some board constraints as well, and some of the constraints that we talked about, whether it's around budget or student attendance and or recruitment, because those are 2 critical factors, and they don't go under the goals. They would be under the constraint area. So I guess, especially to those board members, well, pretty much it's everybody except me and Blanca that have been on the board. I think me and Blanca and Patsy were able to help develop these goals that we currently have. But for the new board members, are you all okay with these goals, and if there's any questions?
Oh, we can't set any new goals or add any new goals. It's every 5 years or so. Is that what we understand? So we gotta wait till the 2027 or 2026, and then whatever board is there, then they can do some new goals.
I think they are effective today.
Yeah.
And that was the goal, is to really look at how we could really continue to grow our district in the direction that we wanted to, without looking at, just high stakes testing or, other factors. We wanted to go with research-based type of programs that are going to show growth within the student and within our district, and at the end have a direct impact on student outcomes. Okay. Just trying to get on to the better. The question then, if there's no questions around this, is maybe the next one should be either constraints or looking at goal progress measures. Would that be Dr. Galvis?
Or
What we're looking at doing is we also need to get the community engaged, and I think once we looked at, I think this was the goals, then looking at constraints, through the process of LSG is the goal progress measures and some of the inputs and outputs. which is your call, but that way it's wrapped around this.
I think when we left off with full-start governance, we're now looking along with PIO a PowerPoint presentation, so you all can go out and speak to schools, to the community, about our goals, our progress measures. So that's part of the advocacy of the rubric.
Okay. So what do you see as next steps? Because what I would really like to do is have everything wrapped around, so that way January, once people get back to school, that would probably be the best where we can visit each campus and probably visit with the staff as well. I think we need to make sure everybody, one, gets a buy-in, but two, also sees, sort of like a listening tour or whatever you call it.
I just want to say, I think Ms. Trout, you've done LSG 3 times?
Yes, 4 times.
4 times, yes. So, Ms. Trout.
Yes, 4 times.
Done.
The 2016 is the first one, remember, when I was a new board member, I was the only one who took it that time, along with another school boards. And it was beautiful, I learned a lot. I think the rest of the board, the new board members, they learned a lot. And very nice experience. But hopefully, we could have it again.
I thought I was one up on you. Well, now I am, since that wasn't, you didn't. Okay. And I just think, well, and that's why I was talking about the calendar, so that way we're all on the calendar. And what the goal is to pretty much visit each one of those goals probably quarterly, so we could rotate it. Every month we would visit one, so that would give us a total, and then we could look at that stuff in between. So, unless we look at the calendar, what's your all's recommendation?
I was going to add to that. I think because we did talk about needing to look at our constraints and figuring out if we still want to keep them the way they are, or make changes to them and adjust them. I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later. So I think if we can plan on that being on the next board meeting, that would be a good starting place. The other thing I think maybe we need to look at is the calendar that they gave to us. I thought it was awesome. The way that it was laid out. So this is really good and it's very clear. But it basically takes that and then it also adds in when we're looking at monitoring the superintendent, it talks about when we're monitoring each goal, talks about our trainings that we're going to be doing as a board. Everything's kind of all in one place. It's very inclusive and it's so easy to read, where you're not having to look for all of these different calendars all over the place for everything. So if we could take that information and implement it into the calendar format that they gave us, I think it would be much more beneficial, and we could all have basically a one-pager that we can go off of.
I think our goal here was to have it all, everything on one page.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're doing. I'll give staff the example. Those in that manual.
Yeah, we can definitely. And also don't forget, I know that you're already learning that in the agenda gotta be more than, what is the percentage for student action?
50%.
You're really good. We need to always to have in the agenda and not try to deviate from there, always to keep our focus on student outcomes. The 50% of the agenda gotta be formed in that 50%, definitely.
Probably not tonight, but hopefully we can do more than 50% on student outcomes. What we'll also be doing, and it's probably best that we're actually measuring the minutes that's actually spent on it, on each item. So that's probably something that I would recommend that you should do that moving forward. That's that way you don't have to go back and do the recording, and you could probably just do it for Adrian. That's yeah.
Well, that takes us to a very good starting point, jumping off point for LSG. Anyone else? Adrian.
Next item is going to be number 4, open forum. Any person wishing to address the board during the period reserved for public comment at a board meeting must sign up to be heard in accordance with District Policy BED Local. Each participant will be limited to 3 minutes to make comments to the board. The board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. For further information on these policies, please contact the superintendent's administrative assistant.
Adrian, before we start with the first one, is every one of our speakers aware of the rules and regulations
Yes,
under
ma'am.
which we operate? Thank you. The first one.
The first person is going to be Mr. John M. Joyner regarding the proposed tax rate. Mr. Joyner, would you like to address the board at this time, or do you want to open until section number 6, public hearing? That's when we're going to be talking about the tax rate.
I'll speak to him now.
Mr. Joyner, welcome. Even though it sounds like it's going to be a wet one by the time we get out.
Well, I knew it was gonna rain today because they gave me water to irrigate my farm. So I'm irrigating in a rainstorm.
It was a sure sign.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Dr. Galaviz, Mendoza, board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all again. Something Sergeant Pugh said resonated with me greatly. He said he served this country because he loved this country. I come to these school board meetings because I love the children of Canyon Tier, and I want to have a voice in what goes on. On this new tax rate, I'd kind of like to know what we're going to do with the money, what we expect to do with it. A couple of things. We seem to have a top-down approach to leadership. The school board dictates to the community what's going to happen with very little input from the community. I don't know if there's any way for interested community members to get involved in your Lone Star government so we can get some of their training y'all get so we know what you're talking about. We don't know where this curriculum comes from. We don't know where the ideas come from that you guys come up with. Just recently, CRT, DEI, that kind of stuff I'm vehemently opposed to, but I had no input in that. I just like to have a chance to get involved in what's going on in the community. Also would like y'all to consider using the consent agenda for the things that it's actually intended for, not putting things in it and not discussing in front of the community what's going on. You have something in consent agenda tonight that it'd take a Philadelphia lawyer to understand. I have no earthly idea what that item says. So I'd kind of like y'all to put things in plain English. And I understand that each profession has its own language. You guys throw around acronyms all the time. Those of us in the lay community have no idea what you're talking about. Also governance, I get that. Some of the other stuff I don't. Anyway, I'd just like to tell you that I have no personal animosity to any school board member. I pray for you guys all the time. Pray for you to have guidance and direction. And I want a positive outcome for our children. And I would like to have a non-adversarial relationship with the school board. I'd really like to have the school board work with the community and listen to us when we ask questions. We're just trying to understand what we're doing. I think that's about all I wanted to talk to you about tonight. Just tell you that, like I said, I pray for you guys to open your hearts up and do what's right for the kids. And not just pick up every new idea that comes along. And I'd also like for you guys to consider, 3 of y'all consider putting an item on the school board agenda where we finally talk about a biliteracy program. For 17 years, I've been asking you guys, and for 17 years, they've been looking at me like I'm crazy. We have got to start teaching all of our children to be biliterate, to read and write English and Spanish, at least, if not Mandarin and some other things, because they're falling behind in the workforce, and we got to stop that. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Much appreciated. Next speaker.
Mr. Kate Burden, also regarding item 6B, approval of the tax rate for the 2024 school year. Would you like to address the board at this time or during the meeting?
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, or good evening, board members and administration. While revising my agenda,
I would like to know.
Excuse me, Mrs. Burton, can you please put
Oh,
closer?
so sorry. Okay, I'll start over again. Okay, good evening, board members and administration. While revising my agenda, I would like to know more specific information on the 2024 tax rate on item 6B, which reads, which I'm going to read from the agenda, approval of resolution which officially levies the tax rate for the year 2024 school year. What will the additional funds go towards? That would be number one. And then the other, why propose another bond eventually when still in debt with the previous? As a taxpayer and a community member, I am requesting more in-depth information with no rulings. And I also believe very strongly that this information should be made known to the public, because sometimes the public is not aware. And so I think this is very important, because we need to know what is before us in our community. So I just want to address this, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next person is going to be Ms. Sonia Friday, also regarding item 6B, approval of resolution for tax rate.
Welcome, Ms. Friday.
Thank you.
Very short.
Okay. Good evening. I'm here also in the, looking at the agenda, revising it, on item 6B for the approval of resolution which officially levies the tax rate for the 2024 school year. I'd like as well to know more in depth what it entails, more clearly information for the community, for parents, for taxpayers. Give us information, put a slideshow, anything you can do, but keep us informed, and what funds will be used to and going towards to. I ask also no motion or decision be made in regards to this until you inform the community. Also with, again, I need to put trust in your administration, the way you're running this, because we're already in debt. There's bonds still being paid for. Another thing, totally off the, different subject, I also am here to address again the main concern as well under the leadership of Dr. Reyes and Ms. Nancy Torres under the Student Support Services. And I see she is attending tonight. I want to rebuke the great, what she's doing, not informing parents of the LGBTQ curriculum being implemented under Project Vida, an external organization who gives money to the district to access our children in disguise of the quote-unquote teen relationship. We've come as parents and asked her many times, put there what it is. You're putting LGBT curriculum not under teen relationships or wellness. Do not give us pretty wording, just put it there. Let parents decide what is better for our children. That is all I'm asking for tonight. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Friday.
Next person is going to be Mr. Jesus Ramirez in regards to school violence.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies. How many of you were in the school board last year? All of you weren't part of the school board? This year you're part of the school board. Well, I'm concerned about the school violence that's been arising throughout the I've been concerned about the school violence arising in my high schools. There's a lot of innocent people out there, and I advise that we all should look into this. Please look into this, because before we know it, there's going to be an innocent person that's going to be killed or be put in a hospital, because you're all not doing nothing. Since last year, it's been happening, and we've been asked We've been told that you guys are investigation. Forget the investigation. You need to start putting some handcuffs and arrest some of these kids. They're violent people. They're violent little kids. They may be violent to their own parents. That's probably why they won't speak up. Maybe their parents are violent to them. But we need to get this up. We need to get a hand on this. Our son got into a fight this year and last year. That's not good. He's the innocent bystander. And he's getting punished just like those violent kids are. That's not right. The level of violence is not the same as when you're protecting yourself. When you're out there, somebody's attacking you, you're going to protect yourself. You're not going to be arrested. The other person is. So why are both of them being punished? Because one started it and the other is protecting himself. I don't understand that. Could you explain that to me, how that happened? Why is that a fact? That they both get the same punishment? It shouldn't be like that, right? But you all should be accountable for all of this since last year. We've complained about it, and they just tell us investigation. Get the investigation. Have a good day, and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, sir.
Next participant will be Ms. Graciela Gonzalez regarding Canutillo High School rising physical altercation, security, and Principal Marroco's involvement.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
At my 3 minutes, are you going to stop me or should I time myself?
It will ring once
Okay.
we're ready.
So, you're probably going to hear us all speak about the same issue about the rise in violence at the high school. We're going to split up the items, so what I'm going to talk about is the lack of security at the school. We need to know the amount of security staff that we have available. During all these videos that went out yesterday on the 14 plus fights that there were, we had more teachers, females, and Coach Brooks breaking up all these fights. And like the other parent just said, we have innocent bystanders that are being dragged into the fights, and nothing is really being done. And what I want to compare it to is how proactive we were as a district when it came to implementing protocols for active shooter instances. We changed that we only have one entrance, they have to buzz us in. But what is the district doing about the attacks that are coming from inside the schools? So we've been very good at implementing these things where nobody can get into our kids, nobody can come into our classrooms, but yet our kids have the enemy sitting right next to them. And we don't know this as parents, you don't know this as board members, and our students, our sons and our daughters are afraid to share this information with us. But these kids that are the so-called CT gang or CT team are bringing in weapons into the school, and we don't know that this is happening. I have had my son come to me and tell me that these kids are bringing in knives to school. So what I want to know, and possibly, maybe Dr. Galavis told me that there was going to be a security committee that is going to be created. What is the amount of security? What's the ratio from security staff to students? Where are they located around the campus? And not only that, what type of training are they getting to deal with these type of kids? Because these kids have no respect, first of all, for their parents, because I don't think a kid would do that in public if they respected what they have at home. But they don't respect our administrative staff, they don't respect their peers, they don't respect anybody. And if you had previews to all the videos of everything that happened yesterday, you would understand that this is only going to get worse. And my fear is this Friday, they're about to get into their 2-week break. What's going to happen this Friday? And I know that Dr. Galavis told me that a lot of these kids have already been addressed. They have been addressed, but yet also all the other innocent students have been addressed the same way. So one of my concerns is, like he stated, is my concern with the principal, how she reacts to these instances. The principal was pretty much, from what I have heard from a lot of our students, was non-existent yesterday. I'm going to bring up our past principal, Clapsaddle, who was very active. She interacted a lot with her kids. She was always out in the hallways. So the kids knew that they had somebody watching what they were doing. We don't know where the principal was at yesterday. We don't know who came up with the disciplinary actions that they're taking, but it's not fair that the kids that are defending themselves are ending up in DAP, are ending up suspended, and they're pretty much being treated the same way that these gang members are, because that's what these kids consider themselves, gang members. And like I said, we've been proactive on putting in protocols
to watch our kids from the outside terror, but not from the inside.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Next participant will be Mr. Joel Torres regarding student safety.
Welcome, Mr. Torres.
Can you guys hear me clearly? Good evening, everyone. I would also like to voice my concern regarding the issue at hand that is surrounding our high school. Seeing the bigger picture makes me understand that things would not have gotten to this level if they addressed our concerns when the issue was happening. And yet, they choose to ignore it and pretend like there was no issue. It's hard to trust my kids to this district. I didn't send my kids today to school because of this. Things have gotten so bad. To the point that I'm trying to make is that it didn't have to come to all of this if they just listened to concerned parents when they were calling me. The school security they had today worked well today. But it came at a price, and that price was paid by the kids that got beat up within the last few weeks. It took one of your staff members to get hurt for you to take action, but when it was your students or even parents, you did nothing. I've seen administration punish kids for so much less, but when involved parents give their concern or eyewitness account, it is seen as they are just being dramatic or even a Karen. If this were to happen in my house, I would be in jail for negligence or bodily harm. You guys are in place to take care of my kids while they're in school. My kids are forced to go to school. They don't have a choice. But what kind of parent would that make me to send them to a school that waits for things to get so bad for them to bring reinforcements because our concerns were taken into account because you just knew better? My son is in a 504 plan. He was beat up in front of his teacher. Nobody checked on his health. None of your staff members checked if his devices were okay or if he was okay. He was more in trouble for defending himself rather than the group of kids who took a gun to a bonfire. You know how we found him to be at a low glucose. My wife had to call the nurse to go look for him somewhere in the building because his glucose was tanking. They treated him like a criminal and not a child in need of medical attention. He was deemed a troublemaker, just like the same as the people who were looking for trouble and beat him up. Yet there was kids going to school events, threatening people and walking around freely in the school. Well, my son has to look a part of a non-troublemaker. Why is this behavior allowed from our administration where they don't take action? What actions will you take to correct this from happening again? And can we have more accountability and transparency from our leaders in place to take action and correct the issues before they become a bigger problem? That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Torres.
Our next participant will be Ms. Brandy Williams, also regarding school violence at Canutillo High School.
Good evening, Ms. Gordon.
Hi, good evening. I just want to first off say thank you to everybody for letting us come up here and speak. And I also want to say thank you to Mr. Galaviz because he did a lot today. And it was seen, absolutely. The gang violence is out of control. It is out of control. We have gone to the school, we've addressed it with the school, we have taken images. These students have posted on social media threatening to kill students, athletes, and the school has done nothing, absolutely nothing, to take control of what's going on within the school. Yesterday was insane. We received calls from so many students because of all of the fights that were taking place. Videos these students were posting on social media in the hallways, kicking kids while they were on the ground, kicking them in their heads. It's out of control. These students are attacking athletes at games, at Whataburger, at McDonald's. Athletes, A honor roll students that do nothing but work to make sure that they can play football, track, basketball. And these kids are still roaming our halls freely. We've been told by administration that if our children fight back and defend themselves, they will be suspended and they will be sent to DAP. It is inappropriate. I have personally, and I've told this to Dr. Galaviz, I've told it to the principals of the school, if my son is attacked, he will defend himself. I will not allow him to be beat the way that these kids were beat yesterday. It's not gonna happen. We need to do better by our kids. And our voices need to be heard. I was turned away on multiple occasions because they wanted to make sure that these children got a chance. There's their chance. There's their chance. It's on social media. They took over our school yesterday. They were outside of my house. They were at the park by my house, on live, on Instagram, threatening to hurt other students, to continue to do this. It's out of control, and people need to do stuff. And unfortunately, it took this to get us to be here, and that's very sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Next is going to be Ms. Perez Estella and Gustavo Ayala, our student advisors, also talking in regards to fights at Cantillo High School.
Good evening. First and foremost, I would like to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to use our voice and represent the student body. Hello, my name is Paris Gastelum, and I'm representing Northwest Early College High School.
Hello, my name is Gustavo Ayala, and I'm representing Cantillo High School. Today we're talking about the fights that happened yesterday at Cantillo from the perspective of a student. These fights were some part of a challenge that underclassmen did with themselves. They said, if you don't fight this person at this day, then you yourself would be fought. So what this is underclassmen, mainly freshmen and sophomores, fighting each other for a challenge. And I don't think that's right. I feel this threatens the safety of everybody, students, staff. As one parent said, one of our APs, assistant principals, got hurt trying to break up one of these fights. We have custodians, teachers, Coach Brooks trying to break up all these fights, and I don't think it's fair that they're here to make our life better, and we're over here making their life miserable by causing all these fights. These fights, they go throughout the day. Those in the morning, during our underclassmen lunch, which is what we consider a lunch. They happen there, they happen during transitions. And I feel if our students keep fighting with each other, that we will have to raise our security, which we already have done. And it will be unfair for us upperclassmen, juniors, seniors, who haven't done anything and will get most of our activities taken away due to these fights.
Going off of what Gus just said, it's important to note that since most of the fights at Cantillo High School are coming from underclassmen, we should actively work to address the issue from its source and take proper disciplinary action to show that violence will not be tolerated, not just in the high schools, but in middle schools, so that once these students reach high school, they are prepared so that we can foster a safe learning environment. And it's also crucial that we have better security within the school grounds inside, making sure that students get to class and they don't have time to go off to fight other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. parents that the board is not allowed to act or discuss or answer questions that are not on the agenda. And the fights and the violence that is occurring at the high school is not on our agenda. So therefore, I want to let you know that we are concerned and we are listening, but we just can't respond at this time.
I have a question.
Do all the people feel the same way? We're having fights? I don't want to leave. Well, we have troubles in our schools. I think we need to speak up. Saying we can't speak on our children in danger. I just heard a story. He just heard a story. That's fine. I'll leave that together.
Chief, can you escort him out, please? Or you're not supposed to respond.
Violence will still continue because you don't do nothing.
I'm sorry. This is a board meeting that's conducted in public.
I understand, but your priority are the kids, right?
Correct.
You're the sole purpose. The sole purpose of everyone being here, of your position, are the kids.
Correct.
So can you allow us more than 3 minutes, just a couple of more minutes? There's people here that are concerned about an increase in tax rate. Can you talk about using part of that tax rate to expand our budget for security for next year's school year?
Well, if we're gonna, during the presentation on the tax rate, there is a public hearing. So there is room for public comment.
But I know you can't address it, but just so that you are aware, there's knives being brought into the school. There's weapons being brought into the school. Guns.
Yes, ma'am.
Guns.
Yes, ma'am, that's all you gotta say.
And the last thing that I think the last thing that we all want is to get that phone call is telling us, hey, yeah, so sorry, unfortunately there was a gun involved and your son is on his way to the hospital.
You're accountable if there's a life taken. You're accountable for it.
Yes, sir.
So
And I will make that.
I would just like to say something.
Wait, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. We need to conduct our
I
meeting.
just think that it's very inappropriate for a board member to say that this person to be removed when there is a major concern with the entire population of the school. That to me is very inappropriate.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood.
Noted.
Next item.
Item number 5, consent agenda.
I move to approve. There's one item.
Last I would have let all that happen.
We will make you accountable. I will make you accountable. Everyone your name down, make you accountable.
All of what they posted about your son.
It's not funny, ma'am. Don't laugh. Do not laugh. No, it is not funny. It's the life of those kids.
That's fine. Thank you.
Do not laugh.
I'm not laughing.
Yes, I saw you.
No, this is that.
That's right. Thank you.
Can we do the agenda?
Correct. Item number 5, consent agenda.
But why are we being removed?
You're not being removed.
Can I speak as people are coming to bring a concern?
There's an item
We know
for
you have an
public.
agenda. When can we follow up to this concerns we have?
There's a public.
I'll follow up with you, sir.
He will.
Okay, that's all I
Thank
want.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you all.
Consent agenda.
I did move to approve. If I may first.
Just the one we talked about?
Yes, actually, there is, sorry. We have, D2, I asked for that to be pulled as I was not informed that that was added.
Is that the only one?
And then we also wanted to pull, B6. Is that it? Hold on. Yes.
The defeasance.
The defeasance, because I think it's important that we explain to the community what that is. The legal jargon that Mr. Joyner brought up, I think that that's important for us to explain because I have the same questions.
So, and I agree with you, Ms. Barnes. The ED local, I just put the policy on your dais. Did have room, time to look at it. So yay, nay. And the defeasance, according to open forum, legal jargon, what is defeasance, what isn't, so,
And if I may, the BED local, I feel like if we're talking about policy, it should not be on consent. We need to put it for next time
okay. Yes,
as
ma'am.
something to be discussed for policy.
I was just, LSG.
No, I got you. No, I got it.
Shoot.
But that affects their time,
Yes,
so.
ma'am. So, Madam Chair, everything except D6 and D2.
Ms. Trout made the motion. Will you amend your motion, Ms. Trout, to?
I wanted to see the second one, Dr. Galaviz, you said item 6,
D6,
B6,
the defeasance,
okay, perfect.
and D2, BED local.
Okay.
D2.
So it's not on our, if you had a pre-printed agenda, it's not on it.
Oh, no wonder.
It's
I
on
don't have
the,
it here.
yes, that's fine.
Give me 1 minute because I need to see what is the second. Yes, ma'am.
We're gonna pull it anyways.
Okay,
So we
okay.
can talk about it.
Okay. I'm agreed. I'm amending my motion, so I move to amend my motion.
To exclude item, 5B6 and
D2.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Adrian?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Cimental?
Yes.
Mrs. Stroud?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Please note that Mr. Rodriguez stepped out of the room. 7:07. Okay, that takes us to, agenda item,
Item number 6, public hearing.
yes, sir.
No.
Si-
No. Item number 5B6.
Right.
5B6.
Right. Yes.
So on item B6, I asked to pull that, for the same purpose that,
Ms. Barnes, hold on.
Oh,
Let
I'm
me make
sorry.
sure the record is clear.
Thank
The
you.
board is now taking up agenda item 5B6, which was pulled from the consent agenda. That's the approval of the order authorizing the defeasance and calling for redemption of certain currently outstanding debt obligations of the district, directing the authorized district officials effectuate the redemption of such obligations, authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement, and resolving other matters in connection therewith. Okay, y'all can go.
Welcome.
Good evening. For the record, members of the board, my name is Arnoldo Cantu with the law firm of Cantu, Hardin, Montoya, LLP. I've been working with district staff.
Excuse me, Mr. Cantu, we can barely hear you. Can you please get closer to the microphone?
It moves.
So sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
To make short of the long, I'm responsible for the legalese, and I apologize. And to that extent, I have with me my colleague, Matt Lujan.
Dr. Galaviz, President, Best members of the board, for the record, Matt Lujan with the Straw and OSM, we serve as financial advisors to the district.
And so by way of, I think, starting this discussion, what is a defeasance? A defeasance is the mechanism that is allowed by Chapter 45 for the district to pay off their debt early. And the easiest way to say, it allows a district to place money into an escrow fund and effectuate the early payment of bonds. I've been working with Mr. Karski and district staff along with Mr. Lujan in effectuating that. And to the extent that there's any questions, Mr. Karski, I'm happy to answer.
So basically what's happened is that because of the tax rate adopted last year, we have excess funds in the debt service, fund.
Please, sir. Mr. Joy, are you listening?
Yes, sir.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Yes, sir.
You like me?
But one good here, I only got one here.
All right.
Speak up, Ms. McCarthy.
All right, sir. Thank you.
So the 36 cents, the INS rate that we had, last year allowed us to have, extra funds, which in here under, section 1 states $6,194,000. And that will be the extra payment or something, an amount close to that will be the amount that will be making the extra payment to the bonds to pay down the bonds further. Now, someone did ask about the bonds that are listed here, and those are the possible bonds. What the financial advisors do is they look at all the bonds that we have outstanding and they find out which ones will give us the biggest bang for our buck as far as this early payment. And so those are the ones that will be chosen when we actually do the transaction.
Mr. President, if I may, thank you for that introduction. So that's correct. So what's in front of you is the whole universe of bonds that's eligible. And just how we look for it is bonds that are earliest callable, so the ones in the 2015s and 2016s that you see in the order, those are callable in 2025. And from there we look at the ones within those call dates that are furthest in maturities, because those will give you the most interest savings, which is what we're focusing on for the district. And so that's the entire universe. As we get closer to the defeasance early next year, the district and ours will work together to determine which maturities are actually defeased, and that'll be interest savings. So this is the big picture. It'll get narrowed down based on records that are available from the ad valorem collections early next year, and that will determine what the district decides how they want to proceed with the defeasance. But like I said before, this is paying down the debt early, which is what we believe the district likes to do. And so this is the mechanism that we're putting in place to do that.
I would just like to add that this resolution comes before the tax rate, because this obligates the district to make that extra payment, and that's what allows us to maintain the tax rate that we have at 36 cents. And so would you like to address the 4 cents?
Sure. So part of the option in that whole universe that's in front of you for the order includes a 4-cent increase on the INS side, so currently 36 cents, proposed 4 cents increase to 40 cents on the INS tax rate, and that's what will get us potentially that $6.2 million in the fees that next year. Again, that's the number that we believe as we get closer, we know the revenue that's available for that. But that 4 cents, just to put that in perspective, that still keeps your total tax rate, your M&O and INS, lower than what it's been over the past since 2017. So it's about 36 cents less than it was in 2017 for the total tax rate. So even though the M&O may be increasing by 4 cents, INS potentially be increased by 4 cents to total 40 cents on the INS side. There's still about $1,000 savings on the INS side if we take the market value house about $280,000, factor in the homestead exemption. There still is the savings the taxpayer will see because of that. So it's still, total tax rate is lower. This also allows you to do interest earning savings, defeasing debt early, and finding debt service savings there.
I just want to see if the students can repeat that.
I have a question. Just, I wish some of those parents that spoke at open forum were here, because this was one of the conversations that they brought up, and the next one that's going to be talked about. But in the defeasance, I know there's the INS and the MNO, so I don't know if you want Ms. Martha, if you want to go over that, or whoever wants to, so that way we can have a better understanding. Because what we're actually doing is it's sort of, when we're going out for bonds, I wish I had a trust fund or somebody would give me a house, right? I had to go out for a loan and get it, and that's pretty much what we're doing in regards to it. What this allows us to do is help pay more down, and that's been part of the conversation I've heard from the community, is let's help pay those bonds down, and this would allow us to do so. It's a great mechanism that we have. Just, is this one time? Is that correct, or is it?
It's annual. We do it.
That's annual. Okay. Well, when we visit the defeasance, is this going to be one time or?
the defeasance order that's in front of you for approval, that's one time. This will be historically, you guys have done this before, the district has. So potentially, if you want to do this next year, do the same thing. We go forward. Right now, it's just for next year, the defeasance up to the amount that's shown there for 2015 and 2016 bonds.
Okay.
But I think one of the questions was, was that what will this money be used for? Well, the INS, the interest and sinking fund, what we call the debt service fund, can only be used to pay down bonds. This money does not go to pay anything else, employee raises, light bills, nothing else.
So, in administration's recommendation, I apologize, I just wanted to make sure to get some input, and that's why I was running around. But the recommendation is from administration.
The recommendation on this item is to go forward with the defeasance and make the extra payment.
Okay, and I'm okay with that agreement.
But I have a question before the motion, and this one for the Martha Picasso. I wanted to know where is this $6,194,200 came from exactly, and I would like to please, if you can help me to understand.
Okay, it comes from the taxes, the property tax collection. When the district receives the funding, part of it goes to the INS or the debt service fund, part of it goes to the maintenance and operation. In the INS fund, because we have that debt service tax rate set at 36 cents, it allows for extra funding. If you just wanted to make the flat payment, then we could lower the tax rate and just make a flat payment, but we wouldn't have money in order to pay down the debt faster. And that's what we understood, is that the community would like this debt paid. And they were already at 36 cents, so we've just been maintaining that 36 cents and making an extra payment once a year.
So the previous year was 36 and the previous year was the same, or are we going to maintain the same conduct with the 36, or is it going to be fluctuating?
It's been 36 cents since I think 2014.
And before 2014 was less, I think? 25?
I would have to look into that. I'm sorry, I got it in 2014. Oh, that's right. It was 25 cents before that. It raised to 36, and we've maintained it at 36
We could maintain it at 36.
Right. So this is the first time we're discussing an increase on the INS side.
Perfect.
But all that extra funding just goes to pay down debt.
The debt that we have. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Fine.
I just want to add something, because I think last time that conversation, because of the fact that people wanted us to look at paying debt down, was why don't we look at the defeasance and or look at how we could pay down more of debt. So this is great timing, and I'm in agreement with that recommendation. Sorry.
So I think you already answered one of my questions, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. So the extra money that you're discussing that we now have to make this extra payment cannot be used for anything else other than paying down debt. So ultimately, it either just sit in the bank account to be used eventually, or used for the same purpose now, correct?
Well, I don't know that we can leave it sitting for.
So it can't even sit.
I'm not sure that it's legal for it to sit.
Yeah.
I believe it has to be used for. Yes.
Okay, for paying down debt, okay. And then, I feel like there was another question that I had. I can't think of it right now, but that was the main one, but I wanted to make sure it was answered.
Do I have a motion?
Well, I just wanted your Stanford law degree. Were you applied in your Stanford classes?
They didn't teach us anything about Texas law.
That's a different part of California.
Frankly, when I was in law school, they had given us a course about public policy. It would have changed my world completely, because it's very obvious from the meeting today that what I do is a very thin slice of what you're handling right now. I think the directive from staff, and the directives from the board, was to A, not raise taxes, B, pay down debt. And this was the mechanism that's best suited for the district. So, like I said, we only play a small part. Mr. Garcia has been amazing.
Mr. Chairman, Got it?
I have a question, if you'll let me ask.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna spend $6 million to pay down the debt, is that correct?
We're not.
194,200.
So, how much money are we saving by spending $6 million? Are we saving 12 million, are we saving 8 million, what are we saving in interest? That's my question.
Yes, it's a good question. So just for the record, that's an estimate. Again, that's gonna be based off of what's collected, whatever rate that's approved tonight, 36 cents versus 40 cents or whatever that may be. So that answer I can't give right now until we say what's gonna be the fees. But just to give you one more estimated, $1 million plus, depending on how many maturities will be the fees next year.
We're gonna spend 6 to save 1? Correct.
You're gonna, that's $6 million, you're gonna spend it anyway, that's your principal payment.
Okay.
You're paying that early,
Okay.
and by paying it early, you're saving $1 million or so estimated based on whatever maturities you leave the fees, on interest savings. So,
You save 1.
Right, so saving money is one of the benefits, but the other benefit is bringing down our balance.
The alternative, of course, being letting the debt accrue interest until maturity, at which point you're paying more anyway, which you would have paid given the current debt that you have. Any early payment that takes out interest is a net positive.
So if I can put that into perspective for our community members, I'm relating that back to my mortgage. So if you make an extra payment on your mortgage, you're paying down the principal, which in the end, you will pay less interest.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay, that's what we're looking at doing.
Having that moment of clarity. Do I hear a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Pratt.
I second.
Adrian?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Cementa?
Yes.
Mrs. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, Adrian.
Next item is gonna be item 5D2, approval of revision of policy BED local, public participation in board meetings.
The board, after Lone Star Governments, I ran out at our attorney, or emailed the attorney, attorney Steve Michael, after realizing that Mr. Creel telling me the law, or telling us the law, input during the public meeting, making sure that we're talking about student outcomes. So I revised the policy, and again, forgive me, that's why it was placed on your dais today. And then again, as far as wanted to sit and bring it out to talk about it. So there it is, as discussed, that when I heard from Lone Star Governments issuing orders so we can again maintain the focus at a board meeting agenda item. Again, we don't want to take voice in the community, but there's other avenues in order that board members can or other items that are not on the agenda.
And I also want to remind the board that local policies in general come before this board twice before they're adopted, correct? Once?
That's a good question. So it's just the one time.
Just the one time.
So I disagree with this change, and I think it's not the right time to do it. I'm just going to explain why. I think right now we don't have many other times in place for our community to come and speak to us as a board to tell us their concerns, and so that I think they feel this is their one and only time to come and actually inform us of stuff. Now, does that affect our minutes at the meetings? It absolutely does. But I don't feel like we should change this until we have opportunities in place already for the community to come and speak before us. So that we're giving up one opportunity, but replacing it and had already replaced it with something else. I think if we get rid of this now, there's going to be a gap of time, and we're telling the community, we will come up with ways for you to come and voice your concerns to us, but we don't know how long that's going to take, and there's no for lack of a better term, our feet are not gonna be held to the fire. So if we really want to change policy and take this off, I think we need to have something else in place prior for the community to be able to voice their concerns to us openly.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Mr. Rodriguez.
And I would like to add on that, I think one of the conversations and me just brainstorming is how can we make that, and we also talked about like having that pamphlet of this is how you could address these concerns, and if it's this type of concern, this is the route you should go. But then also possibly have a section, maybe a pamphlet, but also have a section with that, and then that way we could address it. Especially after today's, I think there's different ways of approaching it, and maybe we should have a better discussion. And I know Gustavo stepped out, but I think maybe what we can do is come up with how we can do that and roll it out. I don't want this to be something that we need to figure out how we do this and look at how other districts do it, so that way probably we do it better. There's also discussion, like maybe you talk about it in the agenda item. There's a form where you fill it out. I know certain districts do it. You want to speak on that form and then what your concerns are, and then you can, if it's something else, you could either, there could be a way, I think that even the big districts have a way where if you have a concern, you could put it through a concern slot, and then it goes to the full board. So there's different, I think right now let's just hold off to the next meeting, so I would recommend we table it, so that way, with someone staff, if we can come up with something.
Is that a motion, Mr. Owen?
I just want to table it, but I think there's direction, because what we need to do is provide a way for the community to have.
Why can't you provide a way? And I just, again, you're the board, this is your policy, you're in charge of it. Again, most our governance ensuring that we're 50% student outcome. And yeah, you're gonna have open forums, people are gonna talk, but there's other avenues that they can reach the board. Pardon? Yeah, but it's not gonna be that hard to put in place in one.
So
I would have made the actions of tonight, I stay true to your values and don't try to please or perfect just a few. I don't know, I just stick to your values and turn out okay with that. Please.
So Dr. Benavides, I'm sorry.
No, again, you're the board. That's just my opinion.
And I just wanted to question, when you said there's another ways that the community could address the board, which one, if it's not this place, where else they're gonna reach us via cell phone? We're not allowed to interact with them. They're gonna send us an email, it's not approved. So which could be a good practice? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, right now they do reach you, right?
I've gotten emails especially.
Oh,
Yeah, but for
there's a
example,
collective way to do it, and you could put it on the agenda, that people do it in a orderly, peaceful fashion, rather than using threats, rather than, again, we have little kids there. Yeah, there's little kids there. Again, we are modeling on, and even the adults know I guess. So there's other ways to address it. Again, I know, again, maybe what the chapter I read from Dare to Lead by Benny Brown talks about, sticking to your values and don't be about pleasing, about being perfect, and doing all that. So, that's
Dr. G, I don't think it's about pleasing. I think what
this is my opinion. Again, you're the board. If you want to table it,
it's actually a board meeting. So I think what we need to do is develop that pamphlet, and then I'm okay with both my cell and my email being covered. That's okay with the others. Develop that pamphlet, and then also talk about the grievance process. If it's that type of issue, if it's an issue of concern as it relates to fraud, there's a proper authorities and there's audit hotline as well. But we need to also make sure that we're not using the audit hotline or the hotline for little stuff. We need to figure out how we educate the community as we roll out the LSG training. We could also put that in one of the slides. So I'm sure we could get with Gustavo and the rest of the staff to do that. And I would recommend for approval once that's done, and hopefully at the next meeting.
If I may, I'd like to point something out, that's on this very policy, given the incidents that we've had here. On the same policy, under disruption, it says the board shall not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience if after at least one warning from the presiding officer, any individual continues to disrupt the meeting by his or her words or actions, the presiding officer may request assistance from law enforcement officials to have the individual removed from the meeting. So this is very clear. It is in policy, and we need to maintain order in these public meetings.
And that was one of my concerns, because, and that's why I stepped out to actually talk to some of my community members, because it's not about using certain issues to actually rile up the community. We need to address, those are serious concerns, and I saw that individual step out to, I think, try to bring in one of those community members with those concerns to do the same thing, and that's not appropriate. We want to make sure that we are, whether you're a community member or board member, we need to make sure we treat everybody with respect and we have a dialogue on really addressing those issues, and that's why it's important to have that in writing. So, with that said, we don't have to take action, right, Steve? We could just leave it, or we could table it. I would just say we'll take action, and then we've had that discussion, bring it back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote for postpone or no? No?
You don't have to, you just don't address it.
All right.
Next item number 6, public hearing. 6A, a public hearing will be held regarding the 2023-2024 property tax rate. The public is invited to attend and provide public comment. The presenter will be Ms. Martha Parsky and Ms. Christy Fuller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mendoza, Board of Trustees, Dr. Valdez. We're having our public hearing to officially adopt our property tax rate. And just to take you back to where we started, we adopted our budget on June 26th for the fiscal year 24. One of the items that is part of that budget is our property taxes. It is one of, it is actually about 50% of our funding source for our local revenues and funds our debt service. We adopted a budget of $82 million, of which 64 was from the general fund, Fund 199. Child nutrition was about 5.3 million, and our debt service was 3.3 million. We also adopted in June our fiscal budget and our expenditures. This budget is adopted at the function level, and we adopted a balanced budget in the child nutrition and in debt service. However, we did adopt a deficit budget in the general fund of $3 million. To take us to the budget adoption, before you also have the top 10 taxpayers. Our top 3 have remained the same for the past couple of years. And most of these taxpayers, they kind of fluctuate in their ranks. Schneider Electric, which was ranked number 10 last year, has moved up into the 4th as our 4th leading taxpayer. So the tax rate is compressed of 2 components, one for the M&O, which is for operations, and also for INS, which serves our debt service. The first component, which is for operations, is set by Texas legislation. And this is a tax rate that TA provides for us. It is a set tax rate and is based on compression. This tax rate last year was at 0.94 cents, and it has been compressed to 76 cents. That's a savings of about 18 cents. This is the voter-approved tax rate that we're going to adopt. It is provided by law, so this is the tax rate that we will provide, or that we will adopt for our M&O for operations.
Can I just add that the maximum compressed rate is compressed because Canudillo is growing faster than the rest of Texas. I believe the rest of Texas is growing at somewhere around 4 or 5%, and Canudillo is growing closer to 11. between 11 and 13%. And so as long as we are growing faster than the rest of Texas, we will continue to, as long as the legislation remains in place. Right, to enjoy the compressed tax rate and these reductions.
I mean, this has been our problem, is the fact that our property tax base is growing faster than our student growth. So, in comparison to Socorro, right, that would probably be, their student growth is growing faster than their population. So the funding formula actually ends up hurting us. And the question that I had in regards to the golden pennies, are we capped because of the previous tax ratification, or is there room for pennies?
I would like to call a lifeline.
So Karski, you only get one.
Again, for the record, Matt Lulon with the Strata Nosa, the Service Finance Advisors to the district. So, Mr. Rodriguez, that's a very good question. And without getting too far into it, I know this is not the agendized item, but one of the reasons that that was recommended to use the extra 4 cents on the INS side provides flexibility for the district in the future, whether that be defeasance, debt service, if you were to issue debt at some point, or there's also, as you mentioned, on the golden pennies, it looks like you are capped, but there's some possible room on the copper with the tax rate, the TRE in the future. So there's room there, and that 40 cents or that 4 cents on the extra INS side does provide flexibility to be able to move that from INS to the MEMS in the future. That was something that the citizens would like to do.
In regards to tax ratification, we've done that in the past, right?
Yeah.
And is there other pennies, or are we capped with the tax ratification we've passed in the past?
You're capped now. You have to go up for another tax ratification.
Yeah, but so we are. In other words, that's a possible solution if, let's say, the legislator doesn't act.
Yeah. In slow motion, he said that you could get an additional 3 pennies with another election.
Okay. And what would those 3 pennies come out to be? Have we run
in
those
terms
numbers?
of, we do have it, so we can project, but again, it's going to be based off of your assessed values at that point, so it's going to change.
Do you have them based on current values, or?
So yeah, so current right now, one penny current value is about $300,000 more or less.
So we would be able to raise 9, which is not much. That was key. And what about the state's I know, like, when we would raise a penny, the state would put in money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And what's that ratio? Because originally, and just to give a brief history, when we originally went out for the tax ratification, I believe it was like 1 penny to 1 penny.
Yeah.
And so if we raised at 900, the state would give us 900. So we ended up with a total of 1.6 million. The following year, since the formula changed, or the way we're growing, it went from like, from the 1 to 1 to, if we give them 1, they would give us 0.5, so 0.5 out of the 9 would be what?
Yeah, so again, these are just estimates. It'll be based off this test value and then what it actually did.
Just to give like a history, so we would have brought in 1.6, so the next round the state set 0.5 out of, is it 8 or 9?
So I think to answer your question, between the benefit that the district could provide, again, based off estimates at this current time, about 1.2 million. Out of that, 900,000 would be from the local share, and then the state would provide about 300,000.
Okay, so we would have, like right now, it would be 900, and the state would provide 300.
Right.
So
roughly 1.2.
And what I was trying to, my numbers are off, as you can tell, I'm not a financial advisor. So if you raise, back then, if we were to raise the penny 900, then we would get 900 from the state because it was 1 to 1, so it would be 1.8 million. Then what's half of 9, which is?
So I was told never do math in code, so please don't do that.
So it's 450. So 450 plus 9 is 1350. So the next time around, it was 1350 versus 18 because one, we didn't pass it, and 2, the formula changed, so we ended up losing 0.5 penny. And it might not be 0.5, it's probably something, but just, that's what happened. So the first TRE failed, the second TRE failed, And the third TRE passed, and I think we were only, and probably Gustavo will know more of this history in regards to the TRE passing. But just so that way y'all can get a point of perspective. So that's an option of raising additional funds, but we would have to go out to the voters to ask for that. Right? Am I correct?
You're correct. And to get put in perspective with the current numbers and estimates right now, assuming that the 4 cents was approved on the INS side, so a total of 40 cents versus the current 36 cents, you could, again, move some of that over to the FNF side to reduce that total tax rate from this year to next year and achieve what we just discussed.
Sorry for the question, but I think it would be, I think it's just good because we don't know if we would have to have that conversation in the future, but that's a possible option as to the previous discussion we've had on our budget deficits.
And it's good clarification because I always say that you're maxed, that we're maxed out. And technically we're not, we're maxed without a voter election.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill me, yeah.
I'll start right here.
So on your next component is going to be your INS tax rate. So you'll have two options. By you all approving the defeasance resolution, we have the option to either approve a 36-cent INS rate or a 40-cent tax rate. Either one that you all decide to approve will provide savings for the taxpayer. If we do,
I'm sorry, Chrissy, for clarification, can you tell the audience, the M&O, can you tell them a little bit about what that money goes for?
so the M&O goes for operations. This pays salaries, upkeep for the district. It provides everything that is the operations of the district is paid out of the M&O side. The debt service, of course, is only to service our debt, and that is the only, or I'm sorry, it's the INS. It only services our debt. So with the calculated rate, if we were to adopt a 36-cent INS rate, our calculated rate would be $1.1205, and would generate about $24 million for maintenance and operations and about $11.5 for INS. The impact on our average homeowner is because our appraised values have increased about $60,000 from last year. However, because the homestead exemption also increased about $60,000, there's really not much of an effect on the values that taxpayers will be paying their taxes on. The difference is about a $250 increase. However, the tax rate is going to be reduced about 18 cents if you do the 36 cents. So the value to that to the average homeowner will be about $340 savings. If, however, the board decides to adopt a 40 cents tax rate, it will generate an additional $1.2 million for the debt service for the INS side. This will result for the average homeowner a savings of about $265, which is about a $75 difference between the two different rates. And that would conclude our presentation, and we will open it up for any board questions or public comment.
Ms. Barnes. So earlier, a question was asked about how much money would we save overall if we did the 0.4. And I believe you said overall it would be about $1 million. So what if we don't do that and we go to the 0.36? What would be our overall savings?
As far as again, that $1 million or rough, that's an estimate.
Right.
So it's really hard to say because again, it depends on what's going to be collected. But whatever the rate is, what's going to be collected on the collected rate. And that will determine what's being defeased. And then that, again, wherever our principal is being defeased, that associated interest is what the savings is. So until we know what the principal value taken out for defeasing, it's hard to say that that's going to be the savings amount.
Did that answer your question?
No, but I do understand what you're saying. It's hard to get, it's almost impossible to calculate, but it would be less than that approximate million that
$1 million was just an estimate, just down the middle,
Right.
like whether it's 36 and 47, that was just on average, that's what it looks like for the fees. It's gonna be.
regardless of the,
Correct, it's
Okay.
gonna be more or less depending on what maturities. Because you gotta think within each, we're looking at two different series, 15s and 16s. Then there's a slew of maturities that we can look at, so it depends on which ones are selected for the fees. It's not all determined interest savings.
okay.
Okay, and there's two different savings. So the $1 million is the savings that we're getting for doing the defeasance, which is the sending in the extra payment.
Okay.
Which is the $6 million, which is our savings,
Okay.
because we have that extra tax rate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Okay, I was not here, I lost the track, but I have in my notes some questions. With this 4 cents, 4 cents are increased, right? Okay. For example, how much money, first of all, what we're gonna do with that money? Where are we going to allocate that money, that profit?
Yes, to answer your question. So that 4 cents could be the difference in the defeasance. So right now, so we estimate.
Please get closer to the
Yes, so that would be used for the defeasance. So right now, we estimated at 36 cents, the current INS tax rate,
Correct.
fees approximately $4.9 million in debt. If you were to adopt the 4 cent increase at 40 cents on our INS tax rate, that would increase the fees amount to about 6.1, which is that difference about 1.2, which was referenced earlier. So that's the difference, and that, as you were mentioning, that's going to be the difference in the savings. But right now, we can't tell until we just select those maturities that are going to be the fees.
So another question is, with this, considering this percentage, how much money can we borrow for our next bond with this 40 cents increase?
So that's again going to be a question that needs to be determined as we look at your assessed values at that point. For the next step would be what are the projects. It's going to determine the term of the bond. So right now, when you say this is your capacity, without knowing how many years you're going to that bond could be, it's hard to tell you that right now because it depends on the projects. And then if it's a 30-year bond, you can build more capacity. If it's a 15-year bond, so until we have more finite details, it's hard to say. Give you that answer.
So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just to put it back in perspective, so the 1 cent right now, on your current assessed value is assuming about 98% collection rate. It's about $300,000. So if you do $300,000 at the 4 cents, that's the $1.2 million additional annual debt service payments. Assuming the 30-year estimated 5%, that's about $20 million bond. But again, that's something that needs to be worked out in terms of what the project would be, the term of that bond, interest rates. So right now, those are all just very rough estimates.
Okay, and also,
Can I add to your question?
Sure.
In regards to our bond capacity, what was the previous presentation? I know it's probably about 300 million plus, right?
I'll be honest, I don't remember that number.
Because our bond was 260, and I know we still have capacity. So if you're asking about capacity, we
Yes,
have
the
a
capacity.
huge amount.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So then, but do you have any idea how much do we owe in our previous bonds?
Your total debts are about $73 million.
That's what we owe.
Principal.
Plus interest.
Interest is additional. Right now, your outstanding debt is about $73 million.
73. Thank you. Plus interest that it generates with this. Okay, so maybe this 40 cents, is that what we're gonna use, these 4 cents that we are increasing, for example, 112, which is 76 plus 36, are we in that? Is 112? And 76 plus 36 plus 4 is 116. And what are we gonna do with those 4 cents? Do you have any idea how much can we earn with those 4 cents income to you?
That was our, there was a 6 million that would help pay an additional 3 million.
And it's gonna help.
Which is gonna look at that 73 million and pay what, about anywhere from 6. So next year it's gonna be like 69.
68, 60 something.
Yes, that's correct. So the difference between the 36 cents, if you were to assume that was going to be the fees, that you INS tax revenue is going to be the fees, 36 cents gives you about $4.9 million in the fees debt. But 40 cents gets you about $6.1 million. The difference is about $1.2 million between with that extra 4 cents up to fees debt.
If we take the decision for one or the other, still good paragraphs, because before we used to pay 130, and now it's gonna be less, right? Less impact. It could be 112 or it could be 116, because before we used to pay 130.
Right, the district did have a higher tax rate before all this compression. So yes, it's been going down about 5 cents per year, now that we started with the compression. So yes, your new rate will either be between the 112 or the 116.
Well, it depends whether we choose. Okay. Still, any decision will be better than we had before.
Yes.
Correct?
And it's a decision that has to be made tonight.
And a decision gonna be made tonight. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, since this is a public hearing, I invite any member of the public to ask questions pertaining to this item. Anybody? Mr. Joyner?
I assume that we cannot save this money, we have to spend it in the year that we collected it, that's correct? We cannot have a fund that we can invest in something, we have to spend this money to lower the bond.
So people on, the internet can, Mr. Joyner, can you go to the microphone, please? Thank you.
I'm just trying to understand from the financial standpoint. The money, the $6 million that we will have, we have to, the fees, we have to use that money for the fees, and we cannot put it in an account and invest it in something at a higher rate than what is our bond now? What are we paying interest on our bond now?
Right now, principal and interest is a little over $6 million.
No, I'm talking about the interest rate on the bond.
So you've got several series outstanding, and they all have different interest rates.
Okay, so with interest going up the way it is, can we make an investment that will pay us more money than we save by spending the $6 million? I'm not trying to be difficult, I'm just trying to understand what we're doing. Because if we have a 3% interest on the bond, and things are going to 7, 8, or whatever it's going to, maybe we could, do we have to spend that money to pay down the bond? That's all I'm asking. Yeah, sure.
To answer that question in simple terms, there is a constitutional bar against an anticipatory tax.
Okay.
The district levies a tax for what it knows it has to pay.
Okay.
Now, with that said, you can maintain a reasonable reserve in your general fund or your INS, but you can't get too much further past that, or else you run afoul of a lot of the IRS regulations. As I understand it, one of the policies that Mr. Karski has been putting is to make sure that we're sort of drawing down a bit on the INS and the taxes that are levied to pay debt service is paid off in this year. So you'll see that with whether 36 or 40, that's gonna dictate what gets paid off this year. However much you're making based off of that tax rate is going to go to pay off bonds this year.
Okay, thanks. So we can't have a rainy day fund, or do we have to get that surplus up? Or can we not have one at all?
The fund balance is your rainy day fund.
Okay.
And there is a fund balance, and there is a minimum fund balance. And just so you know, there was a quarterly investment report, I believe it was last month, that shows what those funds are not just sitting in an account, they are being invested in the meantime. Unfortunately, as a school district, there are very few things that we can invest in.
Can buy our own bond.
It has to be, the number one is security, and then income comes later.
Anyone else?
If there's no one else, I did want to say a comment. I think, this is a process that we go through. I know there was other comments in open forum, and I was hoping that some of them would stay, because some of the conversation was that, how do we do this, and this is part of the process. So, I think, I appreciate staff and our team to really work on solutions, and this was sort of not out of the box, but it was something that I think we've heard from our community, and it's something that we will do is help pay those bonds down. But looking at, and I think some of the confusion is we have 73 million in bond debt, but we also have 300 plus million in bonding capacity. So if we wanted, sort of like us, I have 73 million in my house payment that I still need to pay, and I have, you know, I could still, I wish I could hopefully go out for to buy one of these houses right across Oseta, but that's pretty much how it works when it comes to public school finance, and when it comes for us to really address some of the inequities in the facilities and some of the facility needs. So I think that's part of the conversation that we need to carry in regards to having that constant communication with the community, so we all get a better understanding and hopefully we're all working on building a better gun field. So.
And just to be clear, regardless of which one we choose, there's going to be a tax savings for our community, for our taxpayers.
I'm gonna say on the average, if the average will, yes.
I think it was like a $75 difference from one to the other.
Right, between the average, because everybody's tax situation is different. And so that's why we just give the example of what the average. But yes, this is a good timing for this 4 cents, that's for the 4 cents, because of both the compression and the homestead at the same time.
Ms. Pekarsky, before we conclude this public hearing, your recommendation or administration's recommendation is which one?
Our recommendation is to ask for the additional 44 cents to make the tax rate 116.
And going to legal, because I'll make the motion, is there a resolution?
Yes.
The full resolution needs to be read? I mean, I know there's a resolution, but
You don't have to read it.
so I could approve administration's recommendation based and make sure that the resolution reflects that.
Yes.
That would be my motion. It's happened in the past.
So we're finishing up the public hearing and now we go into the, would you read it, Adrian?
Item 6B, approval of resolution which officially levies the tax rate for the fiscal year 2024 school year to center Ms. Cooley.
I would just go with administration's recommendation and have that reflected in the resolution.
That's Mr. Rodriguez's motion, and this track seconds the motion. Adrian?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Cimenta?
Yes.
Ms. Stroud?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for guiding us through this complicated process. Next item.
Item number 7, Board of Trustees business. 7A, discussion and possible action regarding the healthcare plan beginning on January 1st, 2024. Presenter, Ms. Martha Carrasco and Mr. Randy McGraw.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Carrasco. Good evening, sir.
I have Randy McGraw here today. I know that at our last meeting, you were assigned some homework, and Randy is going to bring you up to date. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you all know that the survey that we talked about last time that went out to the employees, the end result was the recommendation for TRS. And also, we've had health committee meeting. We've got a couple of those. We've gone through the process, and again, the inclination of the group has been with TRS. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. But of course,
Randy will explain to us what's come out of the homework and what options that we have available.
Good evening, I'm Randy McGraw with Hub International. And after all this, my computer just stopped working. But I'm familiar with the presentation. I'll just look over my head every now and then. So there's a constant change going on since we last met. When we last met with the board, the charge was to solicit fully insured proposals to compare those against our self-funded plan that we had currently. And we'd also already gathered information on TRS active care. And so the request went out to the carriers that can provide fully insured proposals, and we've received proposals back from them. And they're summarized in the presentation that you see up on the screen right now, which is the presentation that was shared with the insurance committee. In addition to that, there was also, as word spreads across the community, some other enterprising vendors contacted the district as well, talking about different plans that they could propose, perhaps to save money as well. One in particular is a company called Insured Benefits Administrators. They're a third-party administrator, originally based locally in El Paso, and now headquartered out of Dallas. And so, even though they were not proposing fully insured proposals, in the best interest of the district, we shared information with them as well. And they submitted a proposal on Friday. So the submission after Friday was after all these presentations had been made. So your benefits committee has not seen that proposal. And then even this afternoon, they updated some of the other school district officials, not myself, but they sent revised proposals this afternoon that I looked at while we were sitting here in the audience. Looks like things are working now. And in addition to all that, Blue Cross Blue Shield improved their offer from Friday late, so those numbers were not reflected in the presentation that was given to the board. And then also today, we received some late-breaking information from TRS in that in order to consider joining them, and they changed some of their rules this month, is what they're advising us. So the rates that they have published for Region 19, for TRS Active Care, which are the rates that any other member here in Region 19 would enjoy under TRS, they informed the district today that that's not the case, and that in order to assess you entering the plan on an off-cycle basis, meaning not September the 1st, that you would have to make a decision before October the 4th week to make a go-no-go decision to request rates from TRS. So they're asking for the same information that we released to the other market players, so they can assess whether or not they would accept you at the published rate, or if they're going to change their rate. And if they're going to, and if you respond by by October the 4th to initiate them to generate a rate, then they'll respond with a rate for you, and then you have a point in time to make a decision, go, no, go. And if you say go, then you're on track, and as soon as they could implement the plan would be April the 1st of 2023, not January, 2024, so not January as we were targeting to go forward. And so with that in mind, with every given month that goes by, our claims expense comes in higher than the revenues that are there to cover, and that's causing the deficit. And so those are just some general comments, you know, before we look at the presentation, that a lot of things have changed, not really big, and I'll point out what's different there too. But that if we don't make any type of decision tonight and decide to do something else, then you'll miss your opportunity to join TRS come April of 2024.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Sir, what if we go along with them, say, okay, TRS, and then before April, what if we get other quotes or whatever? Can we still go with those, or we're gonna have to, we're tied down to that?
You're all
I'm sorry.
I was just asking if we go with TRS and say we don't have to start till April 1st, right? From here to then, does that give us time to shop around, in other words, or get other quotes, or are we tied down to them?
No, you're not obligated to. Well, I mean, it's your decision whether you want to join TRS or not. If you want to obtain more proposals, and so I think some of the conversation based on late breaking news was, well, then that gives us some time to do a formal RFP and collect more information. And so if you did a formal RFP, that's going to take at least 70 days to run its course. And so you won't know the results of the RFP or have them present back to the board. That's going to put it into late November or early December. And so you would not be able to implement a plan by January the 1st if you do an RFP. And if you did the RFP and you don't activate TRS, and then at the end of the RFP process you say, okay, maybe we should consider TRS. So if in December you say, I want to go ahead and put TRS on notice and ask them to firm up their rates, etc., then that's going to be 180 days out from that. That's going to be June the 1st. And if it's June the 1st, then why not just wait until September? Because, you know, we mentioned before, there's a mismatch between the planned year and when deductibles begin and out-of-pocket accumulators begin to. So the KUTO benefit plan runs on a calendar year cycle, January through December, and TRS runs on a I guess they call it fiscal year cycle, September through August. So one of the things we talked about before is if we were to join the plan in December, then our deductibles and out-of-pocket amounts here start over again in December, January. And if you joined in January, then you would have a short plan year under TRS, and their deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums would start over again in September. So if we join in April, then we have to figure out what we're going to do between now and April, which the general consensus would be just keep the rates and the benefits for employees constant until that time, because otherwise we're going to be changing over and over. So it's a difficult situation to be in. What I would cutting ahead a little bit, but what I think might be an advisable course of action is go ahead and so in order for TRS to firm up the rates, they're asking for all the loss data, which we have, and we've been in communication with them today and prepared to upload all the information for them, and then it would take them, they're saying, a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days before they come back with an answer. So if you want to preserve the earliest date to join TRS, you should give direction this evening to say, get the firm rates from TRS. But that doesn't obligate you to do it. It just gives you more information, because we don't now know if all the math that we've done in this presentation is going to be right or not. So if we made that decision, ask them to give us the firm rate, then that does buy us some more time before we have to tell them, and then we would have 90 days to tell them, okay, we're going to do it. But once we say we're going to do it, there's no turning around. So if we tell them, get us the firm rates, yeah, that buys you a little bit more time, and then you can decide what it is you want to do or not do. And if you do want to do an RFP solicitation, then you can certainly do that. We did one last year, and we've got fully insured proposals from all of the fully insured carriers now. And you have another self-funded proposal that came through the door this afternoon. And none of those proposals look like a viable solution to the district if you don't have any more money in your budget to be able to go forward. And that's the premise we're working on, is that the money that you've allocated in your budget, which is about $6.1 million, is all the money that the district can afford to allocate toward this.
And if I might, I know there's probably some more presentation, but I think if we could run both parallel, then it gives us a better option to look at options. But I'll let you finish, and then that way we don't delay it longer. I'll go to the next one, go to the next one.
I think that's based on the information right now that I want you to, that's the way to approach it.
So, and if I might, in regards to, I did receive a call, and I did tell him to send it. I actually told him to send it to Randy and to the others, because I guess they were concerned that that option was not available. And I had another, being in public life for so long and being involved in several organizations, people were trying to, my biggest thing, while they contacted me and I told them to relay to staff, one actually called Dr. Galvez, and I think they're waiting for a response as well. So I think the best option to do is go out for an RFP, be able to look at all options and have everybody compete and see what we can bring to the district. My biggest thing is, in the past, when on the RX side, what did we do? We asked the drug companies to lower their rate, right? Do you remember that?
We asked them to improve their offer from every possible angle, whether it's prescription drug, administration fees.
Did we ask them at this time?
Etc.
Did we ask them at this time?
Oh yeah, everything.
And they're not willing to reduce?
There's a new offer right from Blue Shield. They came in with another.
Okay.
I think that's what Randy said.
No.
Yes,
So
I got lost.
the question is, my question is, have they gone out to look at, have you done that to RX and tell them to lower the rates? Have you told the RX, the drug prescription companies, to lower their rates?
Yes. Whether it's medical, prescription drug.
And nobody's lowering their rate?
Well, they're in the fully insured proposals, the cost of the prescription drug is buried in the rate.
The question
The
is,
self-funded proposal, which was not what we were going out to get, but which now that you're getting, then that's a separate component part.
like 7 years ago, it might have been even longer, he came to us and said it wasn't Blue Cross Blue Shield, it was Aetna. No, was it Aetna? I think it was even before Aetna. He came to us and said, you know what, they're increasing their rate, but don't worry, because we've asked the RX
The
rebates, and then it saved us money. But is there better rebates? Have we looked at that option? The other option.
So there, and again, in the fully insured proposal, all those things are buried in the cost.
And
On the self-funded proposal, then yes, they could make improvements on their rebate.
The other question that I have is, I know, especially with my mom, urgent cares are pretty costly. And not only that, they're not addressing the issues. And I've heard that that's part of our issues, is people are looking at urgent cares versus.
Actually, the biggest issue is the funding hasn't kept up with the cost of claims.
Well, and the question is, and I'm looking at, I guess you as a consultant, what are the behaviors that maybe we could address to maybe say, you know what, if it's urgent cares, then the urgent care is almost going to you know, to the hospital, right? And even when you go to, when I would take my mom to the urgent care, they're all, no, you gotta take her to the hospital, but then they bill me there, you know, and so I think, what are those behaviors that maybe we could look at right now to see if we could minimize and say, you know what?
Exactly, so,
And the last one I'll say, and maybe looking at this RFP is, I know Socorro has a clinic, and that if the people use it, there's possible savings, or they don't even charge the employees to use the clinic.
That's right.
So, I think when we're looking at this RFP, is what are some outside the box thinking, and what are other districts doing, so that way we could, hopefully, my biggest concern, I'm not a fan of TRS, we lock in for 5 years. Like you said, we thought we were at a rate, and right now they're saying, well, you're not at that rate. First give us your data, let's look at it, and we'll tell you what rate. And it might be even more than, you know, we don't know what's gonna happen, and that's why it's best to run these two parallel to see what's
go
gonna
down
happen.
too.
Yeah.
They didn't say it had to go up, they just said you.
Yeah. So I guess summing up all that, like, and maybe other stuff that other districts are doing when we're looking at this RFP is how can we be really creative? And then not only that is how can we probably address some short-term things like looking if it is urgent care, well, you know what, staff, if you're going to an urgent care, we recommend you your primary doctor versus that, and this is because this is the rate increase, so you're changing that behavior. If that's the case, I don't know, I'm not an expert, but I know from my own personal experiences, and what I've heard is some of those, because talking to Dr. W.
Longview ISD did that.
Is it Longview?
Longview ISD. They're looking at staff behavior, which was causing increase. So they identified a certain clinic that told their staff, book this clinic, in order to stop the rate increase. So again, looking at staff behavior.
And if I can say that we have discussed that during our health committee meetings, about using the standalone emergency rooms, you know, that it's best for the employee to go to a hospital. So we've talked about that. We've talked about as far as prescriptions. I know that Randy brings us a list of the mostly used drugs or prescription medication. I know that we had a lengthy discussion about Ozempic and how that's being used for weight loss versus for those that have diabetes. And so that drug at the time that we talked about it was about $1,400. And so those were being, you know, those are also consequences of employees using the plan, and so we are aware of behaviors, and believe me, those are addressed as we talk within the health committee.
I was going to say as well, last year and the year before, it was our strong recommendation to increase co-pays at urgent care centers. For exactly the reason that you pointed out, because your copay at an urgent care is the same as it is at a regular doctor. So there's no financial incentive to go to your doctor as opposed to urgent care.
And that's what I'm saying is,
but the process through the committee shot that down and it never got to the end. But clearly raising copays for urgent care should redirect utilization back to the clinic. In fact, that was the same recommendation we made to Socorro ISD, because they operate a clinic and it's free. But they had their urgent care copay set so low that it was easier for somebody to go to urgent care than to go to the clinic. So we proposed raising the visit to the urgent care, and then the board had an issue with that and said, no, we're charging too much money. But the whole idea was to get them to go to the clinic. which is free.
But it depends about the hours, visits, right?
Yeah, and it's, Monday through, well, they had some extended hours.
Let's say an employee, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. Let's say an employee, for example, he goes to the clinic, is encouraged to go to the clinic to cut edges, okay, that's fine, they're going. But what about if an emergency goes in right now, in the middle of the night, and no one is gonna be there, so they have to.
Yeah. Yeah, the rank order cost in terms of how much things cost, the primary care doctor's office is the lower cost, followed by urgent care, and then emergency room, and then freestanding emergency room. That would be the pecking order if you're trying to just go to the lowest cost.
Exactly.
And so changing some of those co-pays helps redirect things, but you don't want to make it cost prohibitive to go to urgent care after hours or on the weekend, because the alternative to that would be go to the emergency room, which is even worse.
Exactly, or go to the clinic or make an appointment with your doctor. If it doesn't work, then there's.
So those, all of those concepts are good. And then, by the way, too, the Socorro Independent School District operates its clinic at a cost of about $1.4 million.
How much, excuse me?
About $1.4 million is what it costs them to operate the clinic. And we're doing clinic RFPs at EPISD right now.
Is that the same?
And I've done them for other entities too. So the County of El Paso just renewed their clinic agreement with University Medical Center last week. And just to operate the clinic in their downtown courthouse, just that one location, is $700,000 in a year.
Oh.
So when you say, let's have a clinic, what you're just saying is, let's spend $700,000 and see if we can save more than $700,000.
And I just want to sum it up, because I think even whether it's the district having a clinic, or why aren't we partnering up with UNC, we have a clinic here, and that would probably be better than going to urgent care. My thing is, and I guess to sum it up, I believe the recommendation is to Dr. G is to go through the RFP and then look at TRS at the same time and see what comes up. The other thing that, and I like that idea, but going back to my previous conversation, is the fact that when we develop this RFP, that we're very thoughtful in how we do it, of thinking innovatively to address some of these issues, whether it's UMC, whether it's our own clinic, and what it is, and that's how we should develop the RFP, because TRS probably won't give us those options, right? And so then we could compare that to TRS, and then we have a better understanding. And who knows? I know in the past rates have come down when it turns into a competitive market. Let's hope that happens. The last thing, going back to it, is what I'm thinking is, how can we address? I know some people want the urgent care, but that's draining our current health plan. And so if that is the recommendation as a consultant and the staff, and then the board, to the board, then it's something we need to look at. If there's other, to stop the bleed now, what is it that we can do now to address some of those? And then look at the RFP and the TRS. So any of those recommendations that you might want to come back next month and saying it is urgent cares and they're draining us, and if we're able to switch it to making the copay double, and if it's RX, and if we're switching, if you want Ozempic, you can have it, but then, whatever it may be, because actually looking at one of my medications, I was like, oh, why can't I get this one? Well, because you're going to need this topic. So I think, what can we do in the short term, and then hopefully the long term of the RFP and the CRS, we could come up with a better solution for our employees. And it's going to give us time, and then I think we still need to work on getting their input, because to me this is important. As we know, healthcare costs are going to continue to rise in our community. Some of them depend on that, and they depend on it and struggle because, and that's how we have a good system compared to other districts. So I think coming up with the best solution, we could work on it now that it gives us time. So I was a little stressed at this meeting, and when I called Dr. Galaviz today, when he told me that we have time, I think we need to look at all options, because then we'll make a better decision.
Sept,
I think for the
or
motion,
do we need just a,
Some instruction to staff.
I think,
I just want to say that, since the TRS won't entertain bringing this on board until April 1st, we will need to then continue our current, benefits that we have. And, we will continue that at least through March, to the end of March.
it is something.
And so we'll have open enrollment in October or November. We'll set up the open enrollment for that. It'll be a passive one where only those that want to make changes can do that, instead of everybody doing, making the changes. So it's just gonna carry us at least through March.
For example, let's say, can we come back, as an administration, look at it and say, those, that go to urgent care, these are just numbers, making them up top of my head. If you go to urgent care, you're gonna pay $100.
Sure.
And
Well, we would need to, sorry. We would need to change the high deductible health plan deductible.
Okay.
Because the new limit for 2024 for family minimum deductibles, $3,200. So we'd have to make that change.
so we can make that change.
And we
all
can
the way
make
to
we
March.
can tweak the urgent care, we can make other benefit changes for January 1. But I wouldn't want to mislead you and make you think that by making some of those changes, you can see on this page right here.
We're not gonna close the gap.
But we can lessen the impact, but it's not gonna be material.
Well, I think we need to address it by all angles. One is lessen the impact, two is how do we find ways to provide more money, or is it gonna be TRS? Because at the end, what we know is we've not funded the fund the way we're supposed to. And so that's what has helped us in this situation. What I'm asking staff and you, Randy, is to go look at an RFP that's going to be looking at open options and being really creative, and hopefully we could provide the best care. And whatever that may be, it might be TRS, right? But this is going to give us a huge opportunity to see how we reevaluate and provide care to our community. And so the other question, I guess, or Dr. G, what were you going? My mind went the other way. You were going to say, and I think Martha.
Oh, can we make changes?
Oh, yes. Yeah, exactly. So the goal is long term, we're doing that. But what our next month come back to us and say, you know what, we see high cost in these drugs, or we see this. What can we do short term from now till we go to that RFP, and bring those options to us?
So short term would mean changes on January 1. And we can certainly come back and give you some information on that.
We want to continue the quality care that our patients need, our staff needs, and we want to see what behaviors need to change that are having a true impact and really not addressing their needs as an employee.
Yeah, we can do that.
And do not cut the benefits, of course, right? So if they're gonna pay, we wanted the best for the employees. Of course, I understand that we need to allocate maybe more money in the district, but I would like to benefit more our employees. So I don't want to see, like, we cut a lot of benefits because they,
If I may, and I'm sorry, I was talking to Dr. Galaviz, but something came to mind pertaining to this. One of the tours that I took at one point for Lone Star, there was a clinic at one point inside of Lone Star, so I was asking you about that because we had one. He's saying that that's no longer up and running, but it may be something that we could consider because there's still everything in there. We would just have to look at a physician basically to take that over. So we already have the facilities and a lot of the materials that we need for a clinic for, like Socorro does, of course at a smaller level, but still we have something to start with that could be considered to help employees. And
Sure, and if you want, we can throw clinic into the RFP process.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. Go to clinic, And right now, maybe what we can do is partner up with UNC and say, if you use this clinic, your rate is gonna be at this. I mean, if we could go negotiate that.
Yeah, so at the county of El Paso, they use UNC as a clinic provider because it's a county hospital. And so we have a clinic in the county courthouse lower level. And then we also have a deal with UNC to use all of their clinics around town, including the one out here on the west side. So the county of El Paso employee can go downtown to the clinic and have, I think we charge them a $5 copay. And then if they want to, they can go to any of the other clinics, and then it just becomes a regular claim because you're going to a regular UNC clinic. Yes, we take advantage of all the clinic sites like that when you contract with them.
And the partnership could be, I mean, in the RFP, and I like to think outside the box, in the RFP could be either or, because I don't think you want it this way. You could provide both options. Maybe a standalone clinic that is run by the district, or a partnership with somebody that could provide that clinic, let's say like UNC, or even, Providence, or, I mean, that's a way where we could really drive down costs. So I think let's hopefully get creative, and hopefully we can come up with a great solution for it.
We're definitely creative.
We still have it still has a cost, right? As far as the clinics, I mean, is there a big difference? Like you said, Socorro pays $1 million a year for their clinic.
And so it's like anything else. There's the base cost of operating a clinic, which means you're going to have a medical supervisor, several staff members, nurses,
everything.
if you want to have a doctor on staff,
And then we need to pay.
completely, that's going to be about a $200,000 deal just to pay for a full-time doctor. So whether you're Socorro or Isleta or El Paso or Canutillo, just to kick the clinic off, it's going to be about $600,000 regardless of your size. And so so then it becomes, do we have enough people here that would use the clinic to redirect things and lower the cost of care? And you're kind of in this cusp where, you're kind of like right on the borderline where does that investment look like a wise one? Where you're going to get return on investment? But we can certainly request the proposals and see.
I just would like to make a couple notes. Good evening. As far as the Northwest Sanadillo Health Clinic, we do have an MOU that we entered in with Project Vida, which is who created the brick and mortar for the clinic. The clinic is still in mint condition. I know that Project Vida has had difficulty in staffing since COVID, having someone staff full-time in the clinic. I can, at a later date, provide more information on the MOU. I can go over it with Mr. Blanco to determine what that MOU states, to see if there's been any breach or if there's something that we need to address in reference to the clinic. If based on the partnership, depending on what the MOU states, then we can determine what our next step is. But I just do want to tell you the facilities are still, yes ma'am.
So actually, is that clinic open? I remember when we had the ribbon, we were so proud, it was beautiful and everything. Who is it open for? For the public, for the students, for who?
It's a community-based health clinic, so it's open to the community as well as to our staff. What I do want to tell you is that they are open on Thursdays, only Thursdays, and they are actually working with familias triunfadoras, the promotoras that are working in our agency as a partnership agency. They're in our building, so those promotoras are helping to promote vaccinations. So it is a walk-in on Thursdays only. We're kicking off an event this Thursday, September 28th from 5 to 7 to have vaccinations available from HPV to immunizations. COVID, yes ma'am. And so right now it is only open Thursdays. They do provide telehealth, but we find that our community is not very big on telehealth. They want a face-to-face. If our community decides that they want to seek services from the health clinic, they can call the Project Vida number, set up an appointment, and then when they have enough appointments, they bring in a physician or a nurse practitioner who will work with those appointments.
And is this for the persons who qualify, or anyone is welcome?
Anyone is welcome. They have a sliding scale for insurance, they have payment plans, and then of course they take insurance. So it just depends on the client, the patient, but they work with that person.
I could always go with my TRICARE if I want to be seen over there.
Yes, ma'am.
When I want the
Yes, ma'am.
COVID shot and whatever, the tests, or I don't know what else.
They have a navigator who works with you and does the same administrative paperwork to get that going so that they can have that appointment for you.
So again, it's open from what time to what time?
It's open on Thursdays. They're open 8 to 5, but because we are kicking off some vaccinations events, specifically this Thursday, they'll be open 8 to 7. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes.
Thanks, Dr. Reyes, 'cause I thought we closed the clinic, Project Either last.
No, sir.
So,
They just haven't been very present, so we will work on that.
Thank you.
And if I may, the clinic does not, so if we find somebody else to come and work through the clinic, that's not Project Vita, that's an option as well? Or does it have to be used by Project Vita?
Depends on the MOU.
Okay.
They're the ones that they funded the clinic.
Perfect, thank you.
Go back to insurance.
so do you have enough, direction from
Steve,
board?
you're sending your motion, or is that?
I think you should, to give them direction on what you want them
I
to do.
think my motion would be to go back, develop an RFP that's gonna be very innovative and run parallel with us providing, TRS, the info to see which one's gonna be best for our employees. That's my motion.
Do I have a second? Ms. Trout, second.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Cimental?
Yes.
Mrs. Strauss?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item
That
on the
takes us to
meeting adjournment. Time is 8:37 p.m.
magic time.
So in October, we'll have President Rodriguez Casper. Correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, this weekend, so.
Yes, yes.
Do you want like the margarine, like other margarine commercials?
He wants a big crowd.
The 5-point round, I want to